afternoon and good evening, and welcome to Michael Pepper Tech. And just wanted to let you all know that my guest is running a little behind. He lives in another country and ran into some backed up traffic, and he will be with us as soon as possible. And so I will just kind of start the show and talk about some things that have been going on in tech and some discussions. And yes, it might be a little redundant, but um, just kind of wanted to talk about, first of all, Samsung and the new phones that they announced, and kind of the same old thing happening as happens every year, every 6 months or so when they release the S series or the Note. And, you have the group of people who love it, you have the group of people who hate it. And amongst those, you have the people who buy the phone anyways and regret it. You have the people who, oh, I'm not going to buy it, I'm not going to buy it, I'm not going to buy it. And then when it comes out, they buy it. And then they say, oh, I'm switching to. And then you have the why I returned the and all that going on. And then it repeats again 6 months later or a year later with the next series of devices. And I don't really like that. I don't think that that's exactly ethical, and that's not something that I will do. I'm not buying any of them because I've decided I'm not going to buy things that I wouldn't otherwise normally buy because I want to take more of the typical consumer approach to things, show how to use, the device that I currently have, show how to, for example, I'm using my iPhone 12 mini as a webcam, so I do a video on that. I have a desktop that I built that I'm using, so kind of talk about that and show what software I use for that as far as connecting things up and live streaming, and just kind of use what I already have. And yes, I will talk about new technology as it comes out, but I don't see the point in buying it all. Nobody can afford when they're starting out. I almost 2 years into this, but to spend the tens of thousands of dollars a year on it is ridiculous, and the typical consumer is not going to do that. So that's kind of my touch on Samsung and touch on people buying it, and going through the same old, I hate it, I love it, why am I, I'm switching to it, oh, I'm sending it back, I'm switching to the iPhone, oh, I hate the iPhone, I'm switching. It's the same thing every year, and the people that are doing that are, you know, not being truthful to their audience, and they're just playing on the algorithm, and I can't do that and refuse to do that, and I don't like supporting that either. And I think that that's something that, as a content creator and amongst the community of content creators, we need to all understand, and we need to all work together to not really support the people that are doing that. No audio. Interesting. How do I have no audio? No sound? Do 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 do. Are you sure? That's weird because it shows it at my end coming through perfectly fine, and hmm. Okay, good. Tech snowman can. The snowman can. I'm glad you can hear me. I was gonna say it shows up perfectly fine on my end. Let me see something. Turn the volume down on that. Yeah, I have audio. Okay. So the next thing I kind of wanted to cover on is I had switched to an all mostly Samsung ecosystem and was trying to use, Samsung phone, Samsung tablet, Windows computer. I wasn't using a Samsung watch because I don't like the Galaxy Watch interface, but I was using the TicWatch Pro 3 GPS. If you haven't seen the video on that, go check that out. And trying to see how the Android ecosystem side of things works, and I ended up coming back to Apple mostly, mainly because of the issues I was having with my computer. I built my own computer. I bought a pretty nice, expensive laptop. Issues with both of them, with crashing, with getting too loud, with getting too hot when streaming. And Apple launched the M1 series, and that kind of made me realize that you can get the battery life, the performance, the quiet, the coolness without fans in there. And the iPhone 12 mini intrigued me and came and showed that well, for one, the main difference between kind of the Pro and Pro Max of the iPhones and the regular 12 and the 12 mini, even as a content creator, it's not substantial enough difference for me. Yeah, the Pro Max, better low light performance, but who's actually shooting in that low of light? If you are, as a content creator, that's a horrible thing. Get some lights, provide good lighting. For one, it doesn't matter. You're going to have high noise because of the sensor size. And then that brings me to the 12 Pro, thinking, okay, that's still got the third lens. It's still got a 6.1-inch display, the larger battery. It can shoot the HDR in 4K 60, where the 12 and 12 mini are 4K 30. And then it made me realize, well, the main difference between the 12 Pro and the 12 is kind of that extra lens, and that's about it. You're paying more money, and that extra lens, that telephoto lens, isn't going to be used except for when you have good light. And so then that made me think, well, between the 12 and the 12 mini, what would I rather have? And based on the amount of money I had at the time budgeted for the device, and also based on trading in another device towards that as well, I could get the 128 12 mini, or I could get the 64 gig 12. And so I decided to go with the mini. I figured if it comes down to it and the battery life isn't good enough, I can trade it in, get the regular 12, and just deal with the smaller amount of storage by transferring things via AirDrop, iCloud, things of that nature, and just kind of get by with it, and it would be perfectly fine. Well, fortunately, I am happy enough to announce that battery life has been really good. I mean, there are people that will say 6 hours is good for screen on time, and I get at least 8 hours, unless I'm doing something like this where um, I'm streaming on it, which is gonna kill battery life. I mean, even the 11 Pro Max will kill half the battery life in a 2-hour stream. So, um, those situations are odd. If I've shot a lot of photos, shot a lot of video, been on 5G, um, having signal going in and out, doing all sorts of crazy things, and still hit a good 7 hours of screen on time. I average between 7 and 8, and that includes editing videos on it and uploading and doing all the things that I would do, using it, watching YouTube videos, doing obviously if you're on 5G, live streaming with your brightness turned all the way up, that's gonna kill it. But that's gonna kill any phone, no matter the battery size. Also, I mean, I carry, and I got to do a video on this. But I carry, where is it here? I guess it's not over here. I carry a battery pack. Right here. I carry this. This is a, let's see. 10,500 milliamp hour battery pack. And then I have a 20,000 milliamp hour one that can charge my MacBook Air. It can charge a MacBook Pro. It can actually do up to 60 watts via the USB-C. And so I've used that to charge my MacBook Air because the MacBook Air comes with a 30-watt charger but can actually support up to 45 watts. So I use that, or I have this one which has 2 USB ports and a USB-C port plus a flashlight on there. And then on the front it has a screen that shows the charge that's left. And if you double click the button there, if I can, let's see, it becomes a nice flashlight. And that was this sells for about $20 on Amazon. The company is INIU, and they sent it out to me for review a while back. And I'll be doing a review on that. I also have one that I bought that I can't think of the company, but I'll be doing a review on that. And what's cool is those work, with my laptop. They work with my phone. I can plug my camera into it, so I'd have constant power from that, or to charge up the battery internally via that. Anything, full USB, USB-C, those are convenient to have. And so for me, I'm either always near a charger, or I have a battery pack, and this one even has a neat little kind of kickstand thing on it, so you can set the device in there like that, and it holds up and stays. And or I have a charger in the car, a wireless charger over by the bed, a wireless charger on the desk. So due to current circumstances, events, things like that, due to most people's circumstance, and most people, even if they're gone all day, they're in the car for at least 15-20 minutes at one point during the day, and that's enough to get your device charged at least halfway up. And the other advantage is the battery size is only a 2,227 milliamp hour battery, so that's about half the size, a little bit under half the size of the battery of my Note 20 Ultra. But I'm getting about the same battery life, but because the battery is smaller, but it charges at 18 watts and the Note 20 Ultra charges at 25 watts. Technically, that's similar with the iPhone to charging at 36 watts because that's half the battery capacity, so to get the same milliamp hour charge, it's really nice to not have to, worry about that you have to pack in a large battery to get the better battery life. And the disadvantage with a larger battery is it's going to take longer to charge up. Even if you can pump 45 watts into that thing, 50 watts, the last part of it, in order to be healthy with your battery, is going to take longer to charge up. And so I want to focus on normal use and normal products that people will buy, and not super expensive chargers and good battery packs that companies we may not have heard of, but I can try them out and tell you they work perfectly fine, they're safe to use, and, do a video on it and provide that type of content for you guys. And so, new year, new goals, and I know I haven't put out a lot of videos, but like I said, I'm focusing more on not just pumping out content to pump it out, but pumping it out to putting it out to provide value to you all. And I think that is an important thing to focus on. And I think my viewers, my subscribers, hopefully see that and understand that that's the value that you should be getting from the channels that you're watching, from the channels that you're subscribing to. And, you know, um, the tech space can be interesting, and, there's a lot of things that can go on, and it can be very good, and it can be very bad, and there can be, but, we all support each other, and that's good. And so another kind of tech news thing that's gone on is the rumors that LG is pulling out of the cell phone or smartphone mobile space, and I just don't see that happening because they make enough providing displays to other companies that they can kind of experiment, which is like what they did with, well, this phone. It's the LG Velvet. This I use it mainly in just single form, but it's the one that has the dual screen case, and the LG Wing, and devices like that coming out from them provides a benefit to the tech space. It shows people what these companies are capable of, and LG just kind of needs to alter their price a little bit, bring it down. Can't be charging, $800, $1,000 for. I mean, this was 600, and the case you had another 200, so $800, and then the wing is $1,000 for a device that's running a Snapdragon 765G and doesn't have the fastest of UI and the best of cameras. I mean, they're good. By no means are they awful. But when other companies are able to offer the performance, the video quality, the photo quality, the screen quality, everything that they offer for an even lower price, or even half, and companies are throwing the same processor in for half the price, that's a struggle. But like I said, their K series sells pretty well. They're usually, that's the cheap or the free device that every carrier has when you sign up, the K series. Or like Metro PCS is the LG Stylo series. And I think if they were to put the 765 in that and throw in the stylus like they have, and kind of create something to compete with Samsung's Note, but at a lower price point, they would have a good market. And now that Android natively supports a desktop mode, the whole Samsung DeX thing isn't necessarily have to be an advantage just for Samsung, as long as LG can put, and they've put a good skin on it, the split screen mode, things like that. They just need to work on making it so that when you minimize a window, you don't have to go all the way back, find the app again, launch it again. It actually minimizes down to like a status bar, and work on some things like that. And so I don't see them going away. We saw other companies struggle, but LG is still pretty strong. And I feel like if you look at their numbers, their percentage isn't the top 3, but it's still up there along with some other companies, and that's even international performance. Plus, they provide displays to, Apple, and they provide displays to some of the TV companies, and computer companies, and they have a whole other aspect of their market and a whole other aspect of their company other than the mobile part. And so I think they're okay experimenting for now, but they can't do that for too long, and they can't do that with too many iterations on the device, or they will lose enough of the market that it will be a struggle to come back. And we even saw Google kind of step back and go, oh, we need to look more at the mid-market and compete more at that level, and their numbers kind of bumped up. And I think LG could do the same thing, especially if they were able to compete, because Motorola has their stylus series, and LG can step in there and do that. And as far as other news of this week, we've all, I guess, probably heard of about the stock market stuff that's going on. I don't want to bore you guys too much. My buddy Mike, Tech702, if you go to his channel, he did a pretty good short video just kind of discussing what's happened and why, and he will be doing more videos on stock market stuff, but he did a really good short video on that. So if you're curious, go check that out. Also, next Tuesday, if you guys aren't subscribed to the Tech Circus channel, I will put that in the chat, and I'll try to remember to put it in the description as well, because we will be back next Tuesday. There'll be Groundhog's Day with a special episode there. And my guest, should be coming at some point. Let's see here. Can you discuss the whole attack thing with Apple devices and how they're talking how everybody needs to Oh, that happens every time. Every time a new version of iOS comes out, there'll be some article that comes out by 9 to 5 or Mac Rumors or one of those that says, "Oh, we're you need to update because this or that." And I think it's funny because like every version of iOS since iOS, I don't know, 13 point something this started, and you need to do this to update, and unless you can tell me for sure that there's an article that, I'm gonna look here and see what, let's see here, what these companies are talking about as far as, let's see here. Share. Okay. This week, iOS 14.4 and iPad 14.4 updates were released for the masses, and you need to download one or both. If you're looking at your iPhone or iPad right now, head into settings, scroll down, it tells you how to update. Per the update from Apple, the kernel update was for the following: malicious application may be able to elevate privileges. Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited. So I think this is more in lines of, and I am going to get into this a little bit, but the whole thing forcing Facebook and other companies to okay, so Tech for Your Needs says, I don't know if it's bad. I think when it comes to Apple updates on the iPad and iPhone, I install them right away. I don't wait. I never had a problem since the iPhone 7. Yeah, that's the thing. Since they're not reliant on carriers to push updates, essentially Apple can push it out and it's available to everybody. And they're pretty good at fixing things. So if something comes in an update and all of a sudden people are finding some sort of issue, they'll just push out another update real quick or revoke it. They usually have betas out for several iterations, and those things are typically, and usually it's not things that cause substantial issues. And as far and if it does, if there all of a sudden people are like, oh, my battery life is awful, and it wasn't something that was found in beta, Apple's usually pretty quick to push out an update like the next day or so. And seeing it all over Facebook and some of Twitter as well. Yeah, so I think what that has to do more with is that 14.4 brought that update where essentially it forces companies like Facebook had to put a notification, a pop-up that says, oh, we are requesting to use your information, and to allow you to select to not allow certain information, location, contacts, whatever information they want to grab, they have to tell you. And you're allowed to say no, and Facebook isn't happy about that. They're filing a lawsuit. They will lose, because here's the thing. Facebook was only filing this lawsuit because it's a money grab. They want your information because they can sell it to make money, which is what they've done, and they've been sued for it before and lost like $1.3 billion, which they didn't end up paying because supposedly the judge was biased and there was some other stuff. But they've lost lawsuits before, and they will lose again. And here's what I have to say about that. If you don't like that people want their privacy to be secure, go sell your crap app on some other market. Go exploit Android Play Store rules, but that's going to change too, because I believe that Google has said that they're going to do a similar kind of thing. And they should. It's enough that these companies request your information and then basically require you to give certain information for the app to function. Like, oh, you need to give us this information for the app to function. If you don't have such and such enabled, it won't even work. Websites do that. News websites will say, if you have ad block on, you can't even view our stuff. If enough companies say enough is enough, we're not going to let you do that, you can request it, but they can say no. And then if your app doesn't work, then tough luck. Make it work around it. Make it follow our rules. We're not the only ones in the game. But it's an Android thing too. I mean, there's rules you have to follow. There's ways around it. There's ways around it on iOS as far as sideloading IPAs and things like that. And I think that is a struggle that Facebook just needs to find another way. You know what? Put ads. Do something else. You've made enough money. Create, some sort of, if they really wanted to, they could create a subscription. They could say, you know what, for 99 cents a month, we'll remove all the ads. We'll let you customize layout and such. And they could make more money doing that than stealing and selling people's information, and more reliability, more consistency. Just figure out a way to do it. Instagram or Facebook, there's an ad for something that you never searched for but you were talking about. That's not good. Um, People are afraid because their iPhones are very old. That is the number one reason I keep hearing. Yeah, so as far as updates, because people are afraid because Apple at one point did a thing where essentially if your battery percentage went down, they reduced the performance. And it reduced the performance because they didn't want it to throttle, which is essentially like saying your gas tank is getting low on gas, so we're not going to let you crank the gas pedal and go as you know, from 0 to 60 as fast. We're going to, slow things down a little bit. And they got sued for it, and Apple decided, guess what then? Fine, we won't do that, but understand that if your battery life gets worse because we're keeping the performance and batteries degrade, that's on you, and you have to understand that. And that's why it shows, in there what your battery health is and what you need to change and what you need to update. And I recommend to anybody, like, if you have Apple Care Plus and it's about to run out, just use it to go get the battery replaced. Pay the like 20-30 bucks, get that replaced. If you have a bunch of scratches and dings on your screen, go do that. You end up with a newer, better device, newer battery, basically brand new device that can either sell for more or be exchanged for a higher amount. And I think that's something that we all need to kind of look at. But I mean, I keep my devices basically usually until they're, dead, or I don't use them anymore, or they're little or no value, and I might give them to like my niece or somebody. But so let's see, what else shall we talk about in the tech space here? As far as what's been going on. If y'all have any things you want to talk about or any questions, feel free to post those in the chat and I'll cover those as well. Hopefully my guest will show up at some point and we can talk for at least a little bit. Apparently there was a pretty significant car accident that he got stuck behind and has had to wait to get through. And so I apologize, and if it's too late, given he's 6 hours ahead of us, um, we will, reschedule, but I don't see that happening. We discussed this. I actually ended up going an hour earlier than he, so that, or 2 hours earlier than I normally would, so it's not too late for him. But, let me look here. What has been going on? And okay, I can talk about that. Samsung fingerprint optical and ultrasonic, talk about the difference. Okay, so the simple difference in that is optical essentially uses light, and it bounces the light off from your finger, and then there's a camera that picks that up and reads it. It's very similar to how the iPhone fingerprint reader worked, in that there's like a 0.3 megapixel camera down there that takes a bunch of snapshots of your finger. As you put it on there, it takes pulsates, takes a bunch of them rapidly, and then stores those. And then when you touch your finger on there to open, it compares those to what's stored, and it's stored on your device, so that's not sent anywhere. And it's actually in a part of the hardware that's not accessible by other aspects. So essentially, when you go to authenticate an app and the software says we need to use your fingerprint, it's saying to that part of the device, go look and see if their fingerprint matches and then tell us. It's not saying, let us analyze it. It's saying, okay, to the secure enclave, okay, go test it, see if it matches. And then if it does, let us know. So then that part scans up, it matches, and it says, okay, unlock, show the put the password in, things like that. The ultrasonic is essentially using sound waves, like an ultrasound would, and doing a similar thing, except for it's bouncing those off and then they're being read, and it's determining whether the structure of your fingerprint matches what they scanned before. Very similar to the optical, but using sound instead of light. And the optical also on a lot of Android devices are similar to what the I'll show you here the Velvet. So you'll notice that it lights up on the screen to unlock. And if the screen is asleep, some of them won't work. The way this one works is essentially the icon is on there, and when your finger touches, it tells the device to wake up to shine that light and then to scan and do it. So the advantage of Samsung's is I'm on the always on display here, and I can just touch and go right to the screen here. So I try to show you again. So if I just touch it, it goes right to it. It doesn't. Try that again. So this is on the always on display, and so that part of it is not actually lit up at all, right? And I touch it, and it scans and unlocks because it's using sound to bounce up there and unlock it. Versus over on this other phone, you'll see always on you'll see it's off, right? And that's the lock screen. I'm going to do this. Hold on. So this is the always on display, and you'll see that right there. But you'll notice that when I touch it, this display actually kind of went away from that. It actually woke up before it read and then went into it, and it's a lot slower. So then OnePlus, theirs is super fast. I've noticed that theirs is really, really quick. So that's kind of the difference in the, it's, whether it uses light, whether it uses sound, and then also whether the device actually has to be awake or not to scan. And of course, if it has to be awake, that means the screen has to be lit up. That means that there's that delay because you got to double tap and wake up the display, or hit the power button and then hit it. Where if it doesn't require an actual light source, so it's using sound, or there's actually light coming from underneath rather than the display having to light up to light up the fingerprint, that can be instant because that can be triggered as soon as your finger goes to touch and it senses that that's what you're doing. It can be triggered and go right into instead of the screen having to wake up and then sense it and then go. So it's one less step. And so that's kind of the difference there. I know that, let me look here. I was actually looking at some tech news. To see what is going on. So not a lot other than that this week that's going on as far as tech news. And I guess some of the other things I'd like to kind of cover is how I feel like this year tech is going to be a lot about At least so phone tech is going to be a lot about new form factors. We had the Galaxy Fold and the Z Fold 2 and the Z Flip, the Z Flip, the Z Flip 5G. This year, we'll get the next version of the Flip, next version of the Fold. But rolling screens, the idea with that, I think, is nice because a device that folds is only ever those two screen sizes. So when it's open, it's one screen size. When it's closed, it's another. There's no in between. There's no making it bigger or smaller than those. That's just what you have. Some of this idea of this kind of extending screen where it slides out or rolls out or however you want to kind of envision it means you could have a device that's this size and you kind of roll it out and it could roll out pretty far if the display kind of tucks underneath, and you could end up with something the size of, let me kind of fumble around here a second. You could essentially end up extending something out to almost the size of like the Tab S7 Plus. Probably not that big, but bigger than going from like a 6.8 inch to a 7.6 inch, or around an 8 or an 8.1 inch display. You could go bigger than that because the display can essentially roll up in there and you don't have to worry about, am I and you could have displays that are everywhere in between there as well. So you could go from a 6.7 inch screen and then just go to more of a square layout if you want apps two apps side by side. Pull it out further for 3 apps side by side, maybe further for 4. Or pull it all the way out for a widescreen kind of viewing experience. And now to make cases would be interesting, but essentially you could just have a case that has a back piece that kind of it fits inside there, and as you expand that out, that kind of rolls out along with it, and it protects the corners and the sides and the edges. So if you were to drop it, because imagine a case like this, even if there was a hole here and here, if you were to drop it, the edges and the corners are still protected. For it to hit on there, you'd have to drop it on the corner of something. So the same thing would happen if you were to extend this out. As long as the corners are protected, that's going to keep it from being able to hit kind of on a surface, And so I think that's going to be the next avenue as far as technology goes, is devices that can change shape and size. And then you have something like, the Velvet, where you have the dual screen case. So it can be a regular, single screen phone, or you can slap it in a second case. You have the Wing, which kind of, more is like, oh, here's a regular phone. You have 2 screens. You have all these different form factors that companies are experimenting with, partially because we are adapting, we're changing, and we are doing more on these devices than we were doing before. And so hopefully that journey continues and that excitement continues, and we'll see more, happen with that. And so I'm excited to see where it's going. I'm excited to see what these companies do. The price point will be interesting as well on that. And that's kind of, the journey of things and the directions I see things going. And I don't know what what to expect really out of this year, other than obviously they're making bezels on things thinner and they're making devices more optimized. They're making things, but it's only really getting slightly faster year by year, and I don't know that it's going to be significant change. And along that lines, if you look at the differences between devices last year and this year, they claim, they'll say, 30% performance difference in CPU and 40 in GPU and all that. But none of the applications usually take advantage of it, and it's more like so that all the stuff that's running in the background can take that extra space, and then other apps can, so you can have things running in the background working together, but it never really seems to be a noticeable difference. A lot of games don't take advantage of the high refresh rate displays. There's a few. It's at the loss of battery life. And so, what is your opinion on the new Apple Silicon devices coming this year? So I have the M1 MacBook Air, just the base model, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 storage, or I should say of 8 gigs of basically shared memory. And I think, the Air, the Pro, and the Mac Mini, given what they're already able to do with this being the first generation, these will be the worst Macs with their silicone that they ever release, essentially, because they're the first version. And the performance I'm getting, the speeds, being able to launch a 4K YouTube video and have it basically play instantly, yes, which I know is relying on your internet, but not always, because like I have two other pretty powerful computers. When I launch 4K, I see that delay, I see that animation delay, I see that little bit of it, and then when I go out of full screen, I see it change. And so what I expect to see is essentially, as this gets more powerful, that means the base models will be giving us performance that we were having to, that you'd have to pay a higher price, maybe even, 50% to double the price to get before. I mean, if you look at the Mac Mini, $699, or if you want 16 gigs of RAM, $899, and compare that to previous years, a lot of times to get something that performed well, like an i7 and, a bump in RAM and that, you were looking at easily $1,400, $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 a lot of times. And yes, there's a disadvantage with the models right now with the number of ports. And you can only display, one device, one monitor at a time with the MacBooks, unless you're using special adapters, which essentially work through USB, but then there's delay with that, and there could be color accuracy and refresh rate and some things like that that can be a little iffy, and they're expensive. And the Mac Mini even, you get a second monitor support because of HDMI, but that will change, and you got to remember, I mean, these were replacing the base models, so that was kind of the same thing before, where you were limited to so many, ports and things like that. And so even though the base model prices on the MacBook Air and then the MacBook Pro haven't gone down, what you're getting for that price, I would say, is easily 50, 75%, 200, double of the price would have been the cost before to get kind of that same performance. And I mean, you're seeing people who are doing editing and some tasks that need single core performance and even some multi-core performance stuff outpacing the $3,000, $4,000 MacBooks with a machine that's $1,000. And so I really hope to see that progress. Also, I think will, as software comes out and as more developers are working on it, the optimization is going to be incredible. And because it's all essentially going to be an iteration of the same thing, it's all Apple Silicon. It's all, the next version of it might have more cores, might be slightly faster clock speeds and stuff. But anything they do will help optimize the current generation and make that perform better as well. So as the developers update their software and as Apple learns more about how their operating system needs to function to provide things to be in line with providing the benefits that the Intel counterparts had as far as, high refresh rate, multiple monitors, some things like that. As they add those functions, that stuff could trickle down to the current models because they can figure out a way to support that without taking as much as far as power and still get the performance out of it. And I think that's great. Um, Let me check something here. I'm just checking with my guest to see if he wants to reschedule because that's okay with me. I've been on for almost it's 50 minutes, and I like to not keep this much more than an hour. So I think what I would like to do here is say thank you to Apple Monster and Tech for Your Needs, and I see Tech Love and Mamo is in here. The Snowman Can. Anybody who's come by to watch and anybody who catches the replay of this, thank you for coming on by. Thank you for showing the love. And I will let you all know what's going on with, and probably just plan on rescheduling the stream with Nikias. He unfortunately had some things come up. And so I will change the title of this thumbnail, and I will so, keep your notifications on, check Twitter, and follow me over there if you're not, and you'll see when I get him over. And thanks everybody for coming on by, and you all have a good evening.